Mark, can we start with asking you what the latest is with Michael O'Halloran?
Rangers go about their business. We're not talking about any other club's players, or we'll go about our business, target the players we think are appropriate for Rangers. If we get the business done, then we'll talk, obviously, but it'd be wrong to talk about any player, any individual club.
But can you confirm that an approach has been made?
Not at all, far from it. I think I've read in the papers, but nothing has come from Rangers at all. I've scoured every paper. There's been nothing released by Rangers about any players. So I read it with interest. I read these figures with interest. As I say, when we conclude our business, then hopefully we can tell you appropriately then.
So are the newspaper reports wrong in saying that there's
a lot of stuff in the papers which is wrong, bizarre. We're linked to so many players, but I think you'd agree that we'll do our talking when we finish any business. But it'd be wrong to talk about players before anything is concluded. That would be inappropriate. So hopefully we get things done, and if we do that, then we can talk in more detail.
You've talked about trying to get your business done sooner rather than later. Would you be prepared, though, to bring in players as late as possible if they are the right players and of good value?
If you have to wait, but I'm not a fan of that. I think the longer you leave it, I think clubs on both sides of the equation make poor decisions. That's why I think I compare it to house buying. People panic into it and they do make poor decisions and wrong moves. So I'm a fan of getting the business done early, identifying early, opening contact early, dialogue early, and hopefully conclude the deal. So I'd far rather get it done sooner rather than later.
There have been, and forgive me if you've covered this in the last 24 hours or so, but there have been reports last week about interest in Martin Waghorn. Has there been any further since then?
There's been no interest in Martin. I don't mean that derogatory to Martin, far from it. Delighted with Martin and how he's performing and the way he trains every single day, but there's been no interest from other clubs. And again, I read with interest the supposed bids that are turned down and all the interest, but that's not the case at all.
As much as fans might panic and get worried about these sorts of stories about people coming in for your players, does that just show the sign that the progress the club's making?
It does. It's a positive. Positive out of any perceived negative is the fact that players are catching the eye for the right reasons, and they're making the back pages, not the front pages, which is really important to us. But our job, as I've said before here, is to make this environment, attractive, enjoyable. They enjoy kind of work every single day. They're learning, they're developing, they're producing on the pitch. If we get it right environment-wise, then players will want to stay. Simple as that. And if a player does want to leave, they leave on our terms.
And should the fans also therefore expect that at some point over the next couple of years that somebody who is doing well at the club will be sold on?
Well, it happens everywhere. So I wouldn't see that as being wrong. What I think fans hope is that the players deliver. The reason they're being sought after by other clubs is that they're delivering a level of performance which is pleasing. And so we get the value for them in terms of the business while they're here, and if we lose them, it is good business for Rangers. It's as simple as that.
I think for a number of years a lot of Rangers fans would admit that the club probably hasn't been able to get the value out of its players that they probably should have. Like Charlie Allen, who went south, has done very well there. I think Rangers sold him for £500,000. I mean, is this part of your job description when players are brought in, that they have to be brought in order to add value to them so that when they do go?
That's how we would work anyway. There's no directive. Our job as coaching team, management team, is to bring players in who we think add value. You mentioned a name going south there, but you pay a price for him, and then if you develop him, 2 years later he may be worth 7, 10, 15 million. That's how it works. And there's many examples from the last couple of years of players coming on lower money, but they have to develop. You have to give them the chance to develop and be the best they can be. That's what you have to do. As a coach, as a manager, you've got to create that environment that allows their talent to flourish. If you get that right, then you reap the rewards in terms of transfer fees.
Just going back to what you've talked about, value. If clubs are playing hardball, you're going to have to move on to other targets.
Absolutely.
Is that a fair point?
Absolutely. They've got to represent value for the club. We've got to see it as value. Again, there's a fine line between being brave in decision and making a poor decision. But it's like buying a house for me. If you're not comfortable with the figure you're going to pay, don't pay it. There's other houses on the market. Go and find one you're comfortable with. But same with the player. If we think it represents good value for Rangers, then we'll pursue it.
Do you think there's value in the Scottish market? I mean, I think we looked at Scott Allen before. Sort of prices that Rangers were talked about in order to price him out for Hibs were several times more than what he went to Celtic. Figures, I know you're not commenting on it, but Michael O'Halloran upwards of £600,000. Do you think those sums are value for the players that you're talking about?
We decide what we think represents value. We know the southern market better. We learn the Scottish market very, very quickly. But we know the southern market. We know what represents value and what we think is good for the club. It's as simple as that. Other people might disagree, but that's our figure. That's what we think is good value for part, and it's got to work for the other club as well, the selling club. It's got to work that way. If we're losing a player, it's got to work for both sides of the equation, both sides of the coin. But we're comfortable that our judgment is good. That's what you get paid for. If it's wrong, it's wrong. But we hope very much our judgment is good, and if we go for a player, that's what we see as good value.
How many more players do you think you need to bring in now?
In this window or overall?
This window.
We're looking for two players, maybe this 2/3.
And have you got a wide selection of targets at the moment
We've got a number of targets. You have to. That's the job again. Is to look at options 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And again, you have the loan market and talking to clubs down south about where it works. But I think we're a very positive club in terms of a loan option, which is good. And we have to have the dialogue and talk about the environment I referred to earlier. But likewise, I think 2 or 3 players for us now would be good business.
And you spoke about doing it quickly. Are you expecting anyone else imminently before the weekend, perhaps?
We're working on. We're working on right now.
What's the situation with Cammy Bell? Is he going to be allowed to go out on loan?
Cammy Bell, again, stories in the paper, totally untrue. There was no interest from any Premier League club for Cammy. So Cammy's working hard here every day with Jim and the squad. But again, bemused to read the stories.
Has Cammy said he wants to go somewhere to play more games?
No, Cammy's a Rangers player. With the greatest respect to Cammy does what he's told under contract here. That's as simple as that. That's any player. But Cammy's had a long injury, 8.5, 9 months out. His job, and he's working hard now, tirelessly every day to get himself fit, to be in a position to impact games as and when required. But there's been no interest from other clubs.
Has he felt frustration at not being able to win his place back, though?
I think anyone looking at Wes Foddenham's performances from the first day of the season would say that Wes is quite rightly the number 1 right here now. But the nature of this game is that you've got to be ready. As a number 2, as a covering fullback, whatever your position may be, you've got to train hard every day, have the mindset to be ready to respond as and when called. So that's the same for Cammy, same as any other player.
It is difficult more though for goalkeepers because the one position, I suppose.
It's one position, but again, you have injuries, you have suspensions, you have all the natures of the game, or things that happen in the game, and you have to be ready. You're paid, same as any person, any job, you're paid to do your job as and when called on. So in Cammy's case, he's had a frustrating time. He played last year, but Cammy's been out 8.5 months. Now he's back in to train, had a small shoulder injury last week, got over, it's fine, and he's in good shape. Right now he's working, but Wes has the number 1 jersey, quite rightly so, and Cammy's job is to put his head down, be the best he can be, and when his chance comes along, just take it.
There was some note, I noticed, I can't remember where I read it, about Nicky Law and Nicky Clark being allowed to leave. Is there anything like
Again,
that?
I read all these comments, and that's why I spoke about my amusement and bemusement at some of the headlines. But we've got our squad of players here. We're top of the league. We're in good shape. We're at the Petrofac Cup final. We're looking forward to the next round of Scottish Cup. The squad's in good shape. Now our job, we want to go and get players. We can lose players if clubs come in for them, and we have to, as I say, get value for any player that leaves here. But right now, our squad's in good shape.
And you've signed up 2 of the boys long term now. How important was that for you?
Really important. I think we challenge the players to deliver. They come to Rangers, there's a weight of expectation on the players, and they have to deal with being a Rangers player. The media talk about the weight of the blue shirt. Well, they have to deal with it, and in Jason and Andy's case, I think the attitude, the work ethic, the commitment's been first class. The quality undoubtedly has been first class, and they've deserved their contracts, and we've moved swiftly, and that shows that Rangers will move to build strong foundations for the future. Jason's 22 still. For a young player to perform at his level consistently with the quality is first class. And like was Andy Halliday, 2 years older, but asked to play out of position all season, and he's done it really well. So delighted for them, delighted they've earned the contracts. Their job now is work on the next one. Right now the work starts on the next contract, so well done on that one. Pat yourself on the back, but that lasts a couple of minutes. Now the focus is on, what next can I do.
Barry McKay, is there any update on his?
Yeah, Barry's getting very close. I think we just crossing the T's, dotting the I's, and don't we have to? We're nearly there with Barry. Again, a player, delighted with Barry. One of the first names on the team sheet with his level of performance, and again from the first day of pre-season, he's justified that. There were no agendas coming to the club. David and I didn't know the playing squad. We had that proverbial blank canvas. So go and impress, and Barry's one of the players who really is impressed.
And outs in terms of the squad for the weekend?
We're in good shape. Temps there's only one missing, but other than that, we're in good shape. Everyone's fit and well.
So one last thing, Ryan Hardy, is there any talk of him going on loan?
No, there's lots of interest. Lots of clubs want Ryan Hardy. He's a prodigious young goal-scoring talent, but he's 18 and he's been around our first team squad. What we have to do is see what business we do. It's a balance. I know it's stating the obvious. It's a balance in that to make sure you have the strength and depth in your squad without hindering the progress of a young player. So if we get the squad right, then maybe there's an option for Ryan, but we'll wait and see.